Business Breakfast insights on the AI adoption dilemma, cutting through the noise to create real value. It's the latest in the series designed to stimulate meaningful dialogue between QBS academics and the wider business community in Northern Ireland and beyond, and it's great to have such a diverse mix of industries and sectors in the room. This session explores one of the most pressing challenges facing organisations today: how to make confident, strategic decisions about AI adoption in a landscape saturated with tools, hype, and economic uncertainty. So we're all in the realms of this. Some have adopted AI in many shapes and forms. This is a really open discussion to talk about, I suppose, what successes have occurred, what challenges lie ahead. So the event will feature a keynote address from senior lecturer and author of Boom and Bust, A Global History of Financial Bubbles. It was a 2020 Financial Times Book of the Year. William Quinn, followed by a panel discussion with leaders from across Northern Ireland's business ecosystem, looking at how we can navigate AI integration in real time. So we have Roy Keane, who is Vice President of Digital Transformation at Almac Group Services. We have Barry Smith, Group CEO of MCS Group, a specialist recruitment consultancy, and Grace Wong, a student in Queen's Business School who's currently studying a new postgraduate program we have is a Master's in AI in Business. So quite a diverse range on the panel. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into the keynote delivered by Dr. William Quinn. So Will's research examines the dynamics of financial bubbles, the behavioural forces that drive them, and the conditions under which hype outpaces reality. His keynote will apply this lens to the current AI surge, exploring how organisations can distinguish between genuine technological opportunities and inflated expectations. Okay, so we're really thinking around the investment that you're all putting into AI, and are you getting the benefits out of it? So this will set the stage then for a more practical-based panel discussion afterwards. Will, over to you.
Okay, so thanks so much everyone for coming. It's good to see so many people here. I'm Dr. William Quinn, as Julie says, and I'm a senior lecturer in finance here at Queen's, specialised in financial history, and particularly financial bubbles. So I get a lot of media requests these days, people asking, are we in an AI bubble? What do you think? What's going to happen next? Can you please predict the future? And I'm not going to predict the future here, but I'll maybe open some discussion on where we are in this kind of a cycle, and what we can do about it, and then go into some lessons from past bubbles, stuff from history that might not be so obvious, or might give people things to think about. So in 2020, myself and a colleague, John Turner, published this, Boom and Bust, which was probably pretty good timing because people have been speaking about bubbles quite a lot since then. We had meme stocks and crypto, and now we have AI. And what we did was we looked at the last 300 years of financial history, all of the bubbles that have occurred, and thought, what kind of patterns can we see there? How can we use these past episodes to try to identify bubbles in real time in order that we can deal with them better from a policy perspective, from an investment perspective, and then also from a business perspective. So I'm going to talk through some of the lessons that we learned from that. So the first question is, what is a bubble? Because it's not necessarily that straightforward. And then how would we know if we were in one? So what are the causes of bubbles? What kind of things would we look out for that would tell us that we're in a financial bubble? And then I'll apply that directly to AI. Say, okay, where are we now with respect to AI in financial markets? Is this a bubble? And if so, at what stage of the bubble are we at? And then, like I said, just a few lessons from past bubbles, things to think about that'll lead in well to the panel discussion. So what is a bubble? Try to keep this simple because amongst academics, it's very contentious. Academics love to fight each other, especially economists. But pretty straightforward definition is that you have a bubble whenever you see the rise in the price of an asset class, followed by a fall that doesn't have an obvious economic explanation. So we don't really talk about a bubble in the price of oil whenever there's a war in the Middle East and then peace in the Middle East. But we do talk about a bubble if it's something that we can't really explain in very straightforward terms. Easiest way to demonstrate this is to just show you some examples. So my financial bubbles and crisis module has a lot of graphs like these. A line goes up and then a line goes down. This is the 1920s bubble, most famous for the Wall Street crash, this almost vertical line you can see in October of 1929. Most bubbles don't actually burst like this. This is quite unusual. You'd imagine from the name that a bubble sort of inflates gradually and then just pops. Usually they deflate quite slowly. This is an exception because the burst was so sudden and so dramatic. This is the dot-com bubble, the one that's maybe has the most parallels for today, the one that gets talked about most, particularly because it actually involves many of the same people. And again, you can see that there's a line, the gray line is the tech-heavy NASDAQ index, and you see prices rise by a lot, and then they fall by a lot. A lot of companies go bankrupt, a lot of people make a lot of money, but a lot of people lose a lot of money. And then there's the big one, the notorious one, the housing bubble of the 2000s. And I include this broken down by region because the black line here is Northern Ireland. We had one of the most dramatic, destructive housing bubbles in the whole world, which maybe we should make more of. We make a lot out of the Titanic. We're strangely proud of that. Maybe we can get some more tourism out of this. But very famous bubble, had serious impacts, I'm sure, on a lot of people's lives, even in this room. So what causes bubbles? How could we spot whenever we're in a bubble? In order to answer this question, we looked at these 300 years of bubbles and thought, okay, what are the causes here? What are the recurring themes that we see every time there's a major bubble? And we came up with this tool, which we call the bubble triangle. It's derived from the fire triangle, which you might have covered in chemistry in school. In the fire triangle, it just states that if you have sufficient heat, oxygen, and fuel, and then there's a spark, that's when you get a fire. A bubble is quite similar, but the sides are analogous but different. So the first side on the right there is marketability. So marketability is just how easy it is to buy and sell an asset. It's a bit like liquidity, very broadly defined. Very often, whenever we see a bubble, it happens soon after a certain type of asset has got much easier to buy and sell, or people have found a way to trade something that was previously difficult to trade. So a big example you can think of here is mortgage-backed securities. Take a mortgage, which is typically very illiquid, sits in a bank's balance sheet, can't really be shifted, and transform it into something that you can buy and sell on a financial market, and then you can sell derivatives on it, so it becomes even more marketable. Other examples are internet trading during the dot-com bubble. So you've got the internet, and the hype around the internet is driving the dot-com bubble, but it's also making it much easier for regular people to get involved in buying and selling internet stocks. And this drives speculation, which is on the left side here, the heat that drives the financial bubble. And this is the point at which people start buying an asset purely because they see that its price is going up. So they're no longer thinking, this is a good company, this is a house that I expect to earn a lot of money on. It's very straightforwardly, I think the price is going to go up, usually because the price has been going up and it's a momentum trade, and people are getting involved in that reason. And then you get this disconnect between what the asset is actually worth and its price. And then in the bottom, the crucial fuel is money and credit. So how much money is there in the economy? How much borrowed money is there in the economy? So typically, bubbles tend to happen whenever interest rates are very low. You might remember from a few years ago, the acronym ZIRP, Zero Interest Rate Phenomenon. This idea that because interest rates have been so low for so long, people were throwing their money at ridiculous things that they would never, in normal circumstances, have invested in. Also, people tend to take more risks with borrowed money. So if you think again of the housing bubble, a lot of people were taking out second, third, and fourth mortgages, and the thinking here was that the upside is all yours, and if the housing market crashes, well, you can declare bankruptcy, and it's not going to be much fun, but the losses are going to be capped, whereas the gains are going to be unlimited. So when all of these are in place, what's the spark? And for major bubbles, what we found is that the spark always comes from either politics or technology. Politics is the case of the housing bubble. It's driven by this push to extend mortgages throughout society, particularly in UK, USA, Ireland, and Spain. But the technology is much more relevant to what we're talking about today. This is typically involving some some new technology, which is very exciting, drives a lot of hype, sometimes drives new era narratives. So people are thinking this technology changes everything, the old rules of investment don't apply. Typically, the companies that adopt it early are experiencing these extravagant returns, so it's genuinely a very good investment in the early period. And then this attracts momentum trades that feed into the speculation side. So are we in an AI bubble? How does this apply to what we're seeing today? And I'm going to, well, first of all, show that the necessary price increases do look like they're happening, and they actually look like they're accelerating. This is up to May, and the increases in the price of technology companies are continuing to increase. We typically say, as a general rough guideline, that if the price of an asset doubles in the space of 5 years, we'd say it's a candidate that it could be experiencing a bubble. And AI stocks just very much fulfill that they've trebled in the space of about 4 years. So the price increases are dramatic enough that you would think there's a chance that these aren't justified and that we're in a bubble. What about the other sides of the bubble triangle? So in terms of marketability, nowadays, marketability is extremely high all the time, which is one of the reasons that bubbles have become much more common. In the case of the AI bubble, we have things like commission-free brokers, app-based trading, partial stock ownership, things that make it much easier for ordinary people to speculate on AI stocks. The money and credit is coming from quite unusual places. We're used to it coming from, say, bank credit or coming from like margin trades. Typically, it's coming from a lot of private credit. A lot of it is happening through venture capital, so stuff that's not actually traded on the stock market yet. A lot of it is coming from tech companies who have lots of money that they want to invest in these types of things. And then on the speculation side, which I'm leaving a question mark there because I'm not sure how much of that we're seeing just yet. Is it the case we see sort of some examples, particularly more recently, that people who don't normally invest are getting involved in AI stock and buying and selling it and trying to get rich quick through it? But I don't know if it's in the same scale as we would have seen during the housing bubble here, where people were giving up their jobs to become property developers, or in more historical bubbles, like before the Wall Street crash or the dot-com bubble. And then there's the technology, which I think most people are very familiar with by now. This very exciting technology, but with very uncertain potential. And this uncertainty is what's driving a lot of the speculation. So on the other hand, you sort of see some of the sides might be there. There's also reasons to think that we might not be quite at the peak of the bubble just yet. As I was saying, I think the extent of retail interest is quite unclear. And this is really more of a judgment call. It's not really something you can point at. You can look at things like downloads of retail apps that people would use to buy and sell very quickly. But most of that, it's not really taking off. And I get the sense that people who want something to get rich quick might still be more interested in crypto, at least until a few months ago. This is something I think might be starting to turn now. The other thing is that bubbles usually occur whenever interest rates are low. It's very rare to see a bubble that starts and builds whenever you have interest rates as high as they are now. So it could be that if interest rates come down, then the bubble is going to really start to take off. And then the third thing, which is important to note, is that a lot of these price increases make more fundamental sense than when you look at particularly the dot-com bubble. A lot of these companies are actually already making money, and you can sort of argue with the multiples, but it's not obvious that they're kind of ridiculously overvalued, as was the case once we got to the real peak of the dot-com bubble in 2000. So the question there is, if there's an AI bubble, what stage are we at? I think it's very likely that in 10 years, we'll look back on this period and say it was an AI bubble. But it's very important to know whether this is an early stage where actually AI could still be a very good investment, or are we right at the peak and are we going to wake up tomorrow and that the whole bubble has burst? I get the sense, without wanting to go too much on the record saying something that could age really badly, I get the sense that there is actually a bit of time to run on this. So lessons from past bubbles. This is just a few observations that I have. that I think are interesting, that I think that resonate with some of what we're seeing today. And for the first one, I have this quote from Jeff Bezos. It's a headline of Jeff Bezos hails the AI boom as good kind of bubble, which didn't really go down very well with a lot of people, particularly if they've lost a lot of money in a bubble or if they've struggled with the financial crisis. But there is actually some truth in that, because bubbles aren't necessarily bad. They're very often linked to financial crises and all kinds of economic disasters, people who lose money, but they also can be associated with positive social consequences. The cleanest example we found of this is this little-known bubble in the shares of British bicycle companies at the end of the 19th century, where the pneumatic tyre was invented here in Belfast, and suddenly the modern bicycle was so much better than it had been before, and this led to this rush of income, rush of investment into bicycle companies, mostly based in the Midlands. And you see an enormous boom, an enormous promotion boom. Prices go up, prices go down, and most of those companies go bankrupt. But actually, it's not followed by a financial crisis. We don't see severe economic consequences afterwards. And a lot of the companies that are raising money during this boom go on to become household names. So Dunlop, Raleigh, Rover, they go on to make cars. They were all bicycle bubble companies that they were able to raise enough money to start up because they were in a bubble and raising finance was so cheap. The dot-com is a more famous example. So you see the development of an ICT network, a general-purpose technology that transforms society completely. This is what Bezos is alluding to, is saying there's a bubble, but it might actually have positive consequences. So one of the reasons that these bubbles can be so positive is because being in a bubble implies that it's extremely cheap for tech companies to raise funds. So if you're looking at it from an investor's perspective, you say it's a bubble, it's a terrible investment. But from the company's perspective, they're getting a really good deal. So if you want to launch a startup, now could be a really good time. And that could have positive social consequences further down the line. If the banks aren't excessively exposed to the bubble, we're also unlikely to see a financial crisis afterwards. And contagion can be complicated, so it's not impossible that the bursting of an AI bubble could lead to some negative economic consequences. But historically, if the banks aren't on the hook, they tend to be much milder than what we saw, particularly in 2008. So the second lesson then, I have some quotes from bubbles, some selected quotes. These ones are a little more famous than the next ones. So the first is from Irving Fisher, who's one of the greatest economists of all time, but unfortunately maybe even more famous for this. So in October 1929, just a few days before the Wall Street crash, he said that the stock market has reached what looks like a permanently high plateau, a real reputation ruiner. I have to be careful not to say anything like that. The second quote is from Jim Cramer, who is not one of the greatest economists of all time. He's kind of a talking head on US financial TV. He's speaking in February 2000, a few weeks before the dot-com bubble bursts, and saying traditional valuation doesn't work anymore, and the only people that think that it does are troglodytes, and that's why everyone should invest in dot-com stock. So some quotes that aged really badly. But then I have some other quotes from bubbles, and these are from earlier stages of bubbles, which I think are the types of quotes that you often get away with. So this is from James Grant, who's sort of a famous contrarian economist who wrote this very well-reviewed book in 1996 about sort of skepticism towards the dot-com boom, and particularly the internet. And he said, in this book, he said, the tub thumping recalled the rollout of New Coke in 1985, but Windows could be neither tasted nor poured. So this is him looking at the launch of Windows 95, which we now know is one of the most successful software launches in history, and saying, look, this is embarrassing, it's all hype. The second quote is from the Financial Times. They're talking about the launch of Netscape, and saying already at that stage, investors have abandoned reality. And the reason why I think that is a relevant quote is in this next slide. And the point here is when the Financial Times made that comment. So here they were saying, like, investing in tech companies is ridiculous, they're really overvalued, investors have lost their minds. If you'd invested £1,000 whenever the Financial Times had said that, today you would have £26,000. So actually it was a very good investment that the Financial Times were pouring cold water on. And the lesson that I'm leading to here is that pessimistic mistakes can be just as expensive as optimistic mistakes. They're a lot less famous. They often feel a lot less embarrassing. But if you are choosing to sit out a very good investment, that's going to cost you just as much money as if you're getting in at the worst possible time. I also think that the failure of these early pessimistic predictions is what feeds the hype at the peak of the phase. So if you're kind of looking at the media coverage through the dot-com bubble, by the time it gets to the peak in 2000, nobody's really interested in what the pessimists have to say anymore, because they've just been saying again and again and again, like, this is a bubble, and prices just kept going up, and the internet just kept improving and being more widely adopted. And this is why I think the crucial point here is saying, where are you in a cycle? If we look back and say there was an AI bubble, it doesn't mean that the AI bubble lasted this entire period. It could be that AI hype has gone too far now, but a few years ago it was fine, or it could be that it's got some way to run. So the third lesson then is kind of summarized by this sort of rough sketch of what the fault lines of the debate during the dot-com bubble were. So on one side, you had skeptics, so people who were saying, look, the internet is overhyped, its social and economic impact is going to be limited, and most of these dot-com bubble companies, they're not going to survive. It's a bubble, and you should avoid it at all costs. On the other side, you had people that were really pushing it. They're saying, the internet is a world-changing general-purpose technology. If you don't embrace it now, you're going to be left behind, and if you don't invest in it, you're missing out on your one opportunity to get rich. And the reason I highlight this is because both sides were half right, because the internet was a world-changing technology, but the dot-com bubble was a bubble. So there's this disconnect between whether something is a good investment and whether the technology is useful or not. And this you can even see on a macro scale if you look at the stock market as a whole in these bubbles. Even if the technology is phenomenal and it completely changes the world, that doesn't mean those companies are going to make any money in the future. It doesn't mean they're going to survive for another 6 months. And I think this is relevant for today, because AI discourse today seems to have very similar fault lines, where you have people that are very positive about AI and they think it's great and they want to invest lots of money in AI companies for this reason, or launch lots of projects that are going to be that they think are very exciting, that they could make a lot of money. And then on the other side, you have skeptics who are saying it's all hype, it's just regurgitating language, or all of the skeptical ideas that people have about AI, and for that reason, you should avoid these companies. But strangely, the two don't actually really go together. You can have a really good technology, but a really bad investment. And once we get down to narrower decision making, which might be the types of decisions that you're thinking about, maybe your general, broader, big picture feelings about AI just aren't really that relevant. You could love AI or hate AI, but the connection between that and what you actually want to use it for in these specific circumstances is really very sketchy. So thanks for listening. We've got a few copies of our book here, but not very many. So yeah, if you want some, let me know. And I'll pass over to the panel now for this discussion.
So after hearing that, we really want to think about how we can cut through the noise around AI. How do we create real value in organizations? We hear, as Will outlined, are we in a bubble? Is there a lot of hype? When do we actually start maybe investing and looking at opportunities? So it'd be great to hear from all three of you very different perspectives. So first of all, can I ask maybe each of you to introduce yourself and to think about, first of all, what does AI mean in the context of your work? So coming from a corporate, an SME, and then a student who's developing their skills in AI as well. So maybe if we come, first of all, to you, Barry.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Very interesting, Will, and some of the stuff we were talking about really resonated there. So my role, I'm CEO and founder of MCS Group. We're a specialist recruitment company and talent consultancy headquartered in Belfast. And we work with companies all across Ireland, north and south, and we've a US operation which works mainly down the East Coast. So I suppose in the context of this, there's probably two hats I wear. One is we're a locally owned SME. We employ about 100 people. And of course, like all SMEs, we're looking for opportunities to improve our operations, to drive productivity, to reduce bottlenecks, to create commercial advantage. So that's very much, so AI obviously offers lots of opportunities to help with that. And so it's very much to the forefront of our thinking as a leadership group. And of course, there's the threat if you don't hanging there, if you don't adapt quickly enough, if you don't move forward with the times, then will your competitors move further, faster, and where will that leave you? So that's very much, very, very current and very live in our world. And then if you think about our market, we provide services to organizations, primarily recruitment and talent consultancy. And we're seeing AI make a massive shift in that world. Jobs are being redesigned. Some jobs are potentially going to be lost while others get created. Organizations are struggling with, what do we do with AI? What does it mean for the people we're hiring? How do we hire AI skills? How do we design our workforces? So that's driving our consultancy business probably quite significantly as a result of that, where companies need a lot of help. So pretty core to what we're about, both from our market and our internal demands.
Yeah, great, Barry. So you really see it from both perspectives, as SME and then that wider what's happening from a recruitment kind of strategy perspective across industries and sectors.
Absolutely, and it's interesting times.
Yeah, indeed. Roy, I'll come to you. So you work for a much larger organisation, Almac.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Roy Kane. I'm Vice President of Digital Transformation for Almac Clinical Services. My role in Almac is to create and develop and deploy digital transformation, of which AI is a component, of course. But for me, artificial intelligence is not just about technology for technology's sake. It's about, that's the tool, it's not the goal. We're using AI for decisions to enable better, faster, more reliable decisions within our organization. In our world, that means like getting drug to patients faster, more efficiently, with less waste and less risk. So we can talk a bit more further in terms of what we're going to do in terms of how we've developed our AI strategy into Almac Clinical Services, but it's broadly about being able to be more efficient in how we actually deliver our services today.
Yeah, we'll pick up later about how you're actually rolling it out. So Grace, to yourself, what does AI mean to you in the context of someone you're starting out in your career, studied business management here at Queen's and then went on to postgraduate study more in specialising in AI? What does it mean to you?
So to me, I think it's a bit of an investment, a bit of a gamble as well in my future for myself. It's definitely a tool. I think it's become a part of me, unfortunately. I am a prune at heart. I don't want to use AI, but it is something that I am definitely pivoting towards. I've used it in all my papers as I am expected to. I've used it in my job seeking, and I've managed to find my internship. Yay. I think it's a journey as well, trying to understand all the different facets of AI, because there's always something new in the news. There's always something new coming up. So it's a constant learning journey. It's a tool that I grapple with every day. That's what AI is for me, I suppose. Yeah.
Great to hear. And it's lovely to hear too from other generations of the use, how you're using it. It's probably quite different maybe to some of the maybe older generations like myself.
Don't worry, the younger generation's scared too, not just you. Don't worry at all.
Very good. And Barry, maybe just focusing in a little bit more around SMEs. SMEs often face great pressure to adopt AI. Maybe many in the room are thinking around adopting or have adopted, but maybe haven't got quite the success from it. As a leader of a local SME, how do you navigate this tension in MCS?
Yeah, well, there is, I suppose, there is pressure to adopt for sure, as I mentioned earlier. Really interesting to hear, Grace, because I don't think there's any gamble with getting involved in AI. I don't think you're speculating there, Grace. I think you're in the right lines. But for us, I suppose, how do we navigate it? Look, it can be quite overwhelming because there are. I think we all know the sort of core, sort of AI providers, if you want to think about it like that. But there are literally thousands of AI products out there that we could use in different parts of our business, in theory. And so in some ways, it's sort of quite overwhelming if you look externally. and you sort of see all these tools that come along that could help you with almost every sort of granular part of your business. And I think that's where it becomes really dangerous. And certainly, you know, I've seen companies that sort of are like magpies and are sort of buying the new shiny thing. So for us, it's much more about the business need. That's how we've tried to attack it. So really looking at how we can improve our business, whether that's efficiency, taking, you know, automating routine tasks, whether that's, you know, maybe, you know, getting better insights, or, you know, getting insights in areas where we don't have insights today and how we use data, or, you know, bottlenecks that exist in the business. So we've tried to look at that and then reflect on what the technology what technology is out there that could support us with that. So it's not really, you know, about AI, it's about the business, and it's about business challenges, and then looking to see what tools are out there. And it's really interesting when you do it. One of the things, and obviously the evolution of AI, particularly probably since ChatGPT was sort of launched and everything sort of changed overnight, was I think we look at everything through a different lens now. So we automated a really critical part of our finance function about 8 months ago. And the technology to automate that was available for about 15 years.
Right.
And we never thought about it through that lens before. But when we started looking at, well, what can we automate? What are we repeatably doing in a repeatable way that isn't really a high value sort of task, but the outcome is important. And all of a sudden we were using the technology we had in a different way. So for me, it's not about all the sort of cool things that come along. It is about the business needs, and what can add value, and what can, you know, release, you know, bottlenecks, or you know, make the customer experience better, or speed up delivery, or whatever that happens to be. That's how we're trying to attack it, and then looking to see what technology is out there to support us with that, and then go from there. I suppose that the challenge is, alongside that, it is important, I think, to have a view of what is coming down the line, because again, that might cause you to completely reframe what you think you can or can't do with technology. Yeah. So you do need a sort of line of sight as what's coming, but mostly it's about simplifying and building from the ground up for us.
Yeah, and as you talk about, you say a lot about we implemented. How do you implement? Is it like, who in the organisation? Is it you thinking about it? Is it younger members? Like, who is putting the ideas forward?
I'll try not to be offended by that, Julie. That feels like the second jab here about generation and age. But yes, I do think about it a lot. Look, it definitely is the sort of thing keeps me up at night. So I suppose as a leadership group, we've set the agenda within the organisation. But yes, we don't own it entirely. We're really trying to drive it throughout the organisation. So we have working groups that are looking at, you know, and often, you know, the best opportunities to automate come from the people closest to the work, whatever that is. So if you look at the finance example that I gave, that came from, you know, a finance manager working with a credit controller. But we do have, we appointed a new head of innovation about a year ago. And that was very much, it wasn't purely with AI in mind, but it was, I suppose, you know, I see this world as it's really about innovation and business improvement, continuous improvement. So, but obviously technology is enabling a lot more now. So we have always had that view, but we did go further and employ somebody because we knew a lot was going to change, and we wanted to have the resource. So we haven't got the capacity like an Almac to build a whole team and hire experts like Roy, but we have agility. And we have people that are invested in making their own jobs better, quicker, slicker, and increasing the value of their jobs. So we've tried to sort of change the culture of the business, and then, you know, move quickly, you know, identify the area for improvement. We have some frameworks around, you know, where we look to apply AI or automation, you know, and some roles. So for example, if the data is weak, then it's not fit for AI. If we don't think it's going to deliver value, then it's not fit for AI. So it's not AI as AI's sake, for AI's sake, or technology for technology's sake, as Roy said. But so it's a journey for us, but and probably we know we're really at the start of the journey. It's all going to accelerate quickly over the next couple of years.
Yeah, so a lot of advancement. I suppose it's a nice lead-in to yourself, Roy. You know, obviously you've got a more structured approach, and from her discussions, you know, you're quite far along in that journey around different experimentation that has happened. Could you explain a little bit more about the rollout in Almac?
Yeah, I think what's going to be, I I guess maybe a light of hope or a spark of hope for people is that there are strong parallels with what Barry just said in terms of how we have approached it. Okay, yes, we're a little bit larger in terms of an organisation for Northern Ireland, but we're a regulated environment, so everything has to be explainable and traceable. So we've taken a very structured and measured approach, not big bang at all. We started very small with some use cases. They're very simple things. We did purchase through our group function a large portion of Microsoft Copilot licenses, so we've created a champion group around Copilot within clinical services. There's quite a number of those. There's about 35 champions across the business, which we're working with to kind of get into each of the functions to understand where the problems, so we can pick the problems that matter the most. So where the opportunities arise, we won't call them problems, where are the opportunities to be more efficient. And very simple things like project management agent that helps track details and decisions and scope and so forth. So that one particularly, we had the foresight to record through Teams all of the discovery ideation conversations that we had. We created an agent within Copilot. We loaded those discovery items into the agent, and then started prompting the agent with questions around scope and variability and risk, and we were able to get so much out of it. And it was just a very, very small thing, but the opportunity is to have Copilot, I guess, in the first place, where maybe not everybody has that opportunity. Another example, though, would be to how we would check billing and the percentage of billing for billable hours. So that's saving quite an awful lot of money and saving an awful lot of hours as well. But we have to, like I say, pick the problems that matter the most, because you could get bamboozled by all of these things. You can start chasing the shiny things like a magpie, going, oh, everyone's doing AI, we have to do AI. And I'm sure buying a product off the shelf, it's very difficult to find products now that don't have an AI component. But there's a little framework I think we're going to talk about near the end, and I'll hope you give you some things to think about when you're looking at those AI products or solutions that you're looking at. But I saw a quote recently from Gartner. They were saying about 80% of AI initiatives fail, but the 20% that are successful are focused and centered on solid data, like what Barry just said. You need to have the data foundation. Bad data in is going to be bad data out, so you have to be really, really clear in terms of what your goal is at the end.
And when we were talking previously, you had mentioned too, there was a lot of experimentation was happening in Almac, so you were nearly enabling employees to come up with innovative ideas of how they could use it most effectively in your organisation, which I thought was fantastic, especially in a regulated environment.
100%, but it's in a very safe, non-GXP environment. What's coming in soon will be a policy to help us put the guardrails around it when it becomes to like a GXP environment, so critical GXP and so forth, and where AI can and cannot be used within the organisation, and that's a must for any regulated environment. But that's a maturity curve, I think, where we're on that maturity curve now when it comes to AI, for sure.
Yeah. And just thinking then about the skills, and to you, Grace, so I suppose you're coming fresh to the market with sought-after skills in AI. Can you provide a little bit of an overview of the type of skills that you're developing kind of, through your program today?
I'd say this type of skills would be, first and foremost, is discernment. Discernment to understand what AI is regurgitating out to you, whether you should fact-check it, whether it is giving you what you want. I think that's a huge skill that everyone has to have, that is innate, is discernment. Prompt engineering is huge nowadays. You hear that everywhere. What do you ask it? How do you ask it? And all the more with Claude implementing like tokens, if you get what I mean.
You might need to elaborate out on that a little bit.
So bear with me a bit. I might be fumbling around, but Claude is one of the new big boys in LLMs. Amazing for coding. Loads of companies are rolling that out as well. But what they do is really smart. They monetize each prompt that you give it to them. You're given a few tokens and then you use it. Use it sparingly because they get used up really quickly. Once you're done, you're done. Even with the pro subscription that you pay for, you're still based on the tokens. And then once you're done prompting it, you have to wait, I think, 5 hours. Might be wrong. So then that comes in where you have to really work smart with the kind of prompts you're giving it. That's why they were talking about how when you prompt and you use caveman language so that you maximize all these prompts. But back to it. Prompt maximization, prompt engineering. There's loads of courses online now. I believe Google has one, a 9-hour prompt coursing as well, that you can all try. I believe it's free, but that's a huge skill we should all learn to maximize our results. Another thing would be how to implement AI and the different ways we're going to use AI. AI is everywhere, and it's been here for quite a while already as well. I think these are the skills.
Yeah, and what about ethical considerations? Anything from that perspective that you've been learning about how we need to kind of consider in AI adoption?
Yeah, ethical considerations are a big one because you're giving it so much data, and when it comes to companies, for example, law companies, you can't be giving them your client files, but law firms are utilizing a lot of AI nowadays. When it comes to drafting contracts, it drafts contracts much faster than humans can. But we have to be careful about PDPA. Privacy is a huge one. Is it ethical to use AI without talking to your clients first? That's another one. I think it's the transparency of it all. That's why I believe ethical considerations are a huge one, and it's consistently in the conversations in classes for me, at least, as future leaders, and considering ethics is a huge one.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that prompt engineering piece. The prompt engineering piece is critical, and there's a framework you can use to actually ask the prompt. You're asking it for the situation. You are this person in the performing this. So you give it a role, a task, and an output, and you can keep asking it questions. And at the end of it, you can say, what will I do differently to make it better next time? You can actually even go and say, I want to create a quote, and it'll create a prompt, and it'll create a prompt for you. So if you've got a task in hand that you don't know what to do, you can go in and actually just say, well, this is what I'm trying to do. Help me create a prompt to get it better, and then go again with your prompt. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. One thing I've also learned, the cheeky way out, is I ask one of the AIs to generate a prompt, and then I put it in through to the other AI. For example, Gemini. Gemini is great sometimes with prompt producing, so especially with coding. I'm not amazing, didn't come from a technical background because my undergrad was business management, so it's all new to me. I'm also nervous. So what I do would be I go into Gemini and ask it to draft a prompt to code whatever I want to code, maybe cleaning my data or whatever, and then I put it through Claude, and then it gives a much cleaner and better result. So that's something I've also learned. Yeah.
Great. So it's great to hear some of the skills that's coming through and how they're used in industry. I suppose just focusing in on skills, I thought it would be useful to share this slide with you. So some of our colleagues here in the business school from the Productivity Institute produced a report recently looking at harnessing AI to boost Northern Ireland productivity. So it's kind of noted globally that AI could help productivity levels from anything between 0.7 and 6.8%, which actually is a lot. UK are a little bit more modest, and they say it's around 2.3% increase in productivity it can drive. But this graph in particular is looking at AI exposure. So if you take kind of 0 meaning it's kind of in the middle, but if you look to the right-hand side, it really shows what occupations are going to be exposed most to AI, and the size of the bubble is relative to the size of the population in Northern Ireland. And I suppose the key thing that I see that highlights in this graph is that it's impacting every single level in the organisation. You know, administrators right up to senior management. And when we say exposure, it can be both positive and negative. You know, so it's really interesting to see the impact that it's having on occupations. And I suppose, you know, it'd be interesting, Barry, to get your take on that, you know, from what you're experiencing, you know, on the ground with your clients. What are the asks, you know, today Do you see these types of roles and occupations being transformed in terms of what skills are being asked for?
Yeah, I think we're at the early stages of that, to be fair. What's changed today, there are some exceptions that I'll talk to, but broadly across the board, if you look, we operate mainly in professional and technical disciplines. So accountants, technologists, HR specialists, marketing specialists. So really the ask for most of those groups is that the change is that organizations are looking for people, in inverted commas, with AI. A lot of the time when you probe that, they don't really know what they mean and find it hard to articulate. So is it skills like, well, you need to be good at prompt engineering, or is it something broader than that? And a lot of the time they don't really know. But I suppose the emphasis is that we take is really what they're asking for is they want people who are going to embrace AI and maybe are already doing so. That's really the sort of people they're looking for. So that is a very, very strong trend, and pretty much every role that we recruit for today has that built in, even if it's a management accountant or a marketing executive or whatever it is. So I think, come back to Grace's point about maybe she's taken some sort of gamble with investing in her AI skills. I think there is absolutely no gamble. It's sort of quite the reverse. If you're not learning, if you're not adapting, if you're not embracing, then you're going to be probably in pretty deep trouble, and that's true for organisations as well as individuals. But so at a fairly high level, that's what's going on in areas like technology. It's having a much bigger impact. So software engineering, particularly, I think probably everybody knows. We've got Claude Code, and so we've got. If you look at the journey over the last couple of years, there was probably a pause almost for about 15 months of companies hiring software engineers while they really tried to figure out what's the future going to look like, what is the balance between human and AI. And I think organizations have landed on at least a starting point for that now. So they're hiring again, but the hiring numbers are down a lot. And definitely there's going to be job, losses in the world of software engineering. It's already the case. In most of the others, it's going to be about augmenting jobs with AI to drive greater productivity. That's really what most organizations are trying to do. And most organizations, I think, are a bit like us. So if you look at us with 100 people, on one hand, I'd like to have the same outputs from 70 people or 50 people. But in reality, that doesn't mean I want to make 30 or 50 job losses. I want to grow our capacity. So I want to do 50% more with the same people or 20% more with the same people. And that's the way most organizations are thinking. So I think it will ultimately impact organizational growth, and we're already seeing that. So smaller teams with the same or more output. But I don't think it's going to wipe out job, famous quotes. I'm not. You'll forget this anyway. It's not being recorded.
It is being recorded.
All right. Okay. Well, then I'm going to reverse out of it. No, I mean it's really hard to say. There's obviously going to be job losses. Some jobs are going to disappear. I mean, document readers for law firms and contract writers and so on. But there will be jobs created, and for most jobs, it will be a shift in emphasis to being sort of AI enabled. And I suppose if you strip it all back, the way we have sort of approached it is when we look at what companies are asking for, really they're looking for people we've coined the term the learner gene. They want people who are going to be adaptable, who are going to learn, because we really are at the start of this journey. And, whatever we think we need to know today to be sort of operating effectively today, who knows what that's going to look like in 5 years. So we need people who are going to go on a journey, not people who want to sort of get entrenched in this is how I do things, whether it's prompt engineering as it is today or whether it's more traditional skills. Anybody that's entrenched in this is how I do things is going to find it difficult.
Yeah, so really having that open mind. And then Roy, at Almac, I suppose you're already doing a lot. Have you noticed even in these initial stages, even about culture, the culture in the organisation, if we talk about managing machines, individuals, can you see changes developing?
Okay, of course, like at the start, there's of course with any organisation there's concern, when it comes to AI. I think if you look at the news, you can't help but not have concern, but it's typically the big tech that are kind of generating that news around layoffs and so forth. But there are huge similarities with Barry and I in terms of our opinion and the ethos in the organisation that we have is that we want to be more, we want to grow, we want to do more with the people that we have. We don't want to do more with less. So, you know, it's taking that capacity and optimizing the capacity and then filling the funnel with what you have. So that's absolutely where we're going, and people can see that. I guess the other thing is what's changed is when people see the real examples of the output of and the benefits that your AI tool can help, then people will adopt to it. So there's naturally an air of caution when it comes to AI, but I think we definitely need to drive through it. And once people see the benefits, then they get on board for sure.
Yeah. And how do you decide at Almac where you prioritise your investment? You know, I suppose your role is digital transformation, looking at AI and other technologies as well.
You got to pick the problems that matter the most, and we've got more things that we can do with the people we have to, and money and resources than we have and time. So, you know, you've got to choose. So it has to have a clear business rationale. It has to, you know, make money or save money or make your life easier. It has to have one of these things, or at least one or all of those things, if you can do it. And then you go through a criteria. You have to do a selection process because you do have to pick the ones that are maybe easier to do, give a quick win to yourself, and then something that's more strategic. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we do.
Okay, and then I suppose to close, I know we're running short on time. It'd be great just to get a bit more of a future plan, really, from all three of you. How do you expect your area to develop over the next 5-10 years? So I'll come, first of all, Grace, to yourself. What will really matter in progressing in AI? What do you think? So being early in your career, what are your thoughts?
Like I said, AI is just another tool, and we have to remember that. I'd say I always have to be on my feet. I really believe in lifelong learning. I believe as long as we're able to truly have the willingness to keep learning, keep keeping up with everything changing consistently, every minute there's something new. If we're just willing to learn and give everything a chance, even to just play around with it, to discover, that means a lot, and that might set you apart from somebody else, because not everyone's willing to learn, or not everyone has the ability to keep learning and keep discovering. In the next 5 to 10 years, I believe, because it's an investment, so hopefully, I believe AI will be the future. Of course, with loads of guardrails in place, and remembering that AI only knows what we feed it. It's like a little pet. It's like a child you handhold. Whatever you give it is what it'll regurgitate out. It's how you work with it, and don't let it work you. Don't hallucinate with it. Next 5 to 10 years, maybe there's something new. Maybe we all get taken over by AI. No, I'm kidding. That's the fear. That's my fear. Maybe I have to strike while the iron's hot here. Hopefully I'm the new robot. Who knows? We might be cyborgs. Again, I think there's no point in fretting. There's no point in worrying. We've already done that. That's why we're sitting here. It's willing to just fight for it, learn, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and so you're now going out on an internship starting shortly?
I'll be embarking on my internship that AI has helped me get. No, I'm kidding. I did utilize AI with the application, but it was just only to write a bit. Always edit, always have discernment. I'm gonna start my internship journey. Hopefully that leads to a job. Just trying to stay employable here. Yes.
Yeah, very good. And then, Roy, to yourself. So I know you provided a nice kind of summary document too, just thinking around what will matter most for making progress in AI.
Yeah.
Do you want to just explain that a little bit, and that might help some of the audience?
We were talking before this. We were having a chat about, you come to these breakfast briefings and you sit for a couple of hours and you walk away going, maybe it's not something I should have done. But so we want you to leave with something. You know what I mean? You must have a clear business value, understand the defined outcome. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for the right reason. Use case clarity has to be there. If you don't know it, then don't do the effort. Data readiness is clear. We talked about data. You have to have clean data, garbage in, garbage out. You have to have a clear understanding of your processes. If you don't understand your processes, then AI isn't going to fix it. Practical feasibility is very, very key. You know, how feasible is it for you to go from 0 to 100 overnight with your AI journey? You've got to start small and you've got to go incremental. And then, of course, risk and oversight is very, very key as well. So the framework is there. Yeah, I think we can talk about it afterwards. I'll be hanging around afterwards. You know, there's 10 items of it. You have to measure your success. You've got to know and repeatedly go back and measure the success. So one of the things that we're beginning to look at is when you create your AI agent or you create your AI tool, you've got to go back and make sure that it hasn't hallucinated. You have to do that periodic review to ensure that you're getting the value that you expect to get out of the value. And if you don't, then stop. So that's it.
Yeah, clear. Number one, don't move past number one until you know the business value.
100%.
Yeah.
100%, yes.
Yeah, and make sure that it's delivering your business value. Keep checking. Indeed. Barry, what about yourself? Do you have a similar sort of vision on rollout?
I haven't created a cool product for everybody to take away. Apologies, folks. I think that's really good. Probably.
Well, AI did it.
AI did it, right, there
AI
you go. Well, I
created
should have thought of that. Yeah, it's, look, it probably, the only comment I would make, I think that I've seen that, I sort of can't see the detail on the screen, but I have seen it, and I think it's really, really good, and it sort of aligns with some of the frameworks that we've tried to do, but maybe builds it out a bit further. The only other thing I would say on progress with AI is I think a lot of it is about leadership and about skills. And so the direction of travel that the leaders set and the skills, have you got the people within the organization that can do, can utilize the technology today, that can adapt with it moving forward. So I think of that. In terms of what's, my big 5 to 10 year sort of view. Famously, now I'm quoted for, I don't think it's going to destroy all jobs. I think most jobs will fundamentally change in some way, shape or form. New jobs will be created, as I've said earlier. But I suppose that the big thing for me is I do think AI will be like how we see electricity or the internet today. We don't think about it, it's just there. I think AI is going to be integrated into everything we do, and our mindset will not see it as a separate thing to, today we think about maybe what we're doing and we might think about, hey, AI can support us or help us with that. I don't think we'll have that conscious thought 10 years from now.
Yep.
It'll be built into the tools we're using, and it'll be built into our psyche, and it'll just be there like electricity. So I don't know if that means there'll be a financial bubble that bursts, but I would absolutely be on the page of, even if there is, we're going to end up with technology which has changed the world. If it's used wisely, hopefully for the better, but that's a different panel on a different day, I think. So I'm really optimistic.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Well, at this stage, we're going to open out to the floor. Will, do you want to come and join? Take my seat for questions and answers. So hopefully you've got some questions have been raised from the panel discussion or from Will's opening speech. So we'll go first one over to the right.
Hello, thanks very much for the panel discussion. It was great. A couple of things resonated with me. First of all, I approached Barry last year about a marketing director role, and totally resonates with me about changing, kind of pivoting and being the learner. Because I'm now AI and innovation lead in a different company, so I've had to really upskill myself. So thank you for that, Barry. So the role I do is in the Foundation, which is an agency, a brand agency in Belfast. We have global clients. And one of the things that I'm noticing with a lot of the stakeholder engagements we do, we work on people and culture in large organisations. And what we're finding is that there's a real tension between kind of moving forward and then the governance and risk around that. So we're talking to innovation teams that are really excited about what they can do to transform the company, but then they're coming up against the IT kind of departments. They're saying, whoa, hold on a minute, we need to think about the risks, we need to think about the governance. So we're finding that's a real tension. I just wanted to open it to the panel to say, how do we kind of get around that ownership? Where does it sit? Who makes the decision? That we can focus on value creation, really.
Maybe firstly to you, Roy.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's a difficult balance. I think with my IT hat on, I can understand where they're coming from, because AI in the wrong hands can create an attack vector within your organization that will demolish it or could demolish it. So it's striking that balance between you don't want to kill the innovation, but you also want to get value. And unfortunately, with organizations with a robust IS or IT function, you'll need to be able to bring them to the table and let them be a part of the decision, I think. I think from a people and culture perspective, if they understand the problem you're trying to solve and they're part of the solution, I believe that they'll come to the table with ideas. Using that shared, that collective intellect to ideate the solution is very, very important, rather than throwing it at them and say, I want this. I think that's probably a good start. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I would just add, it comes back to my last point about leadership, because whether it's leadership of the IS or IT department who need to have the vision and the foresight to try and balance risk, real risk, with the need to innovate and evolve and strike the right balance of that with guardrails and everything else. That to me, that's a leadership issue, or whether it's the senior leadership setting the agenda, for example, on innovation in the organisation, that I suppose sets the agenda that we can't be overly risk averse, and we've got to manage risk in an appropriate way. So I do think that's back to the leadership thing as a whole.
Agree.
Great, thank you. Great question. Any other questions?
Thank you. I have two small questions, so I'll ask both. First, to Roy, how are you measuring the success of AI and quantifying that, because obviously you said you're phasing it and you're growing it out on a scale, and you need a business case to continue that scale. How is that being done? And then my second question is to Will, and we talked about, are we in a bubble and the reliance of banks during .com and all that. Is the workforce now the bank? Is the workforce now our collateral for an organisation? I'm thinking of the big technical organisations. You've had Meta, 9,000 jobs gone. Microsoft have got, we could go on. Is the workforce now the collateral for those big organisations to push AI out? It's just a question.
Do you want to go, Roy, do you want to go first?
I don't mind.
No, you can start.
Okay, so as I said earlier, it's make money, save money, make your life easier. So is it revenue growth? Is it operational efficiency? Is it margin? So we measure against those things. So revenue growth is, have we created a product that actually helps us build sales or fill the pipeline? That's easily quantifiable and measured. Operational efficiencies, is it taking hours out to provide additional time for people? That's another thing that's measured. So make money, save money, make your life easier. Those are the things that we're kind of looking at pretty much. So.
Yeah, thanks. So it's a really interesting perspective to think of as sort of human capital as collateral. And it may be the case for the people working in those companies. They could be very worried at the moment. I'm very skeptical of the idea, like Barry, that this is going to lead to a mass unemployment in any great scale, simply because, first of all, that's, as Barry says, not really how organizations operate. They're generally trying to make more money. And also because that's never what's happened in the past, that whenever we've had technology in the past, we always get these same predictions, but it never really materializes whenever you have a new technology, and it perhaps causes these job losses at these big tech companies. Other companies see that as an opportunity. They say, oh, we have all of these super skilled people who've experienced at some of the biggest companies in the world that we can now hire to do the things that we want to do. And there's an adjustment period. So some jobs vanish, some jobs are created. Unemployment might fluctuate, but this idea that you'll suddenly get sort of 30% unemployment seems extremely unlikely to me.
Okay, great.
Can I just add to that? The reason, a lot of the reason behind those job losses is because organisations overhired to a degree that is sort of unfathomable, really, through sort of 21, 22 and into 23. So it is a sort of levelling out. There's no doubt AI and the sort of view of the future is playing a part in some of that, but it's not the only thing that's at play. And then, of course, if you look at Musk and X, there's other maybe cultural shifts that he's trying to achieve by massive job losses, and I can't remember the name. There's another large US software organization made an announcement about 3 months ago, and they said it was all to do with AI, and pretty much everybody who knows the players related it back to commercial performance, and they're hiding behind AI for all the job losses. So there's definitely some impact of that, but I would agree with Will. I don't think that's the only driver.
Okay, great. think we have another question here in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the necessary insights. So talking about the job loss, so how do you deal with like the employee resistance towards adopting like AI, as they might fear it might take away their jobs?
Sorry, what was the first part of that?
Like, how do you deal with the employee resistance towards like adopting the AI in the organizations?
Yeah, again, it's back to leadership, it's culture. I think what some organisations will do, there's a famous saying, it's not a very nice saying, but it's either change the people or change the people. But businesses use that. I think if there's employee resistance is natural. People have fear. Maybe they are being required to apply new skills or use new technologies they haven't used before. That's a very real thing. So the organisation has a responsibility to give them the support and skill them up and put the learning structures in place so that they can actually use the skills and then hopefully quickly see the benefit and then remove the fear. But there is going to be a need on the employee side to have the psyche of I will embrace learning and I will lean into to the evolution of the business. So I think it's a two-way piece, but it's a very deep cultural thing, and it's certainly some organisations. I think of companies that we work with, and it comes from leadership again. They're not agile companies who are forward thinking. So how can you expect the people within the organisation to be adaptable if maybe the senior leadership isn't adaptable? So there's going to be some challenges there, but yeah.
I think staff training is extremely important. I think people need to understand the why that the change is happening, because it is change. It's all about change management. So we see AI, and we've talked about AI, and nearly the end we're saying, well, change management is critical to all of it, because if you introduce a new process change or if you introduce a new technology change, then the organisation, the individuals have to be trained and understand the why. They're at least given an opportunity to understand the why.
Yeah, and even just to add to that, I suppose it's all our responsibility to really educate as well. So even from a university perspective, not that I'm plugging our courses, etc., but there is a range of micro-credentials available in September. But I think, as an individual, a lot of us want to reskill and be relevant. So, there's opportunities there. Grace even mentioned, free software available through, Google for prompting. And a lot of short courses available here through other universities as well. So I think it's up to us all how we actually look at the whole ecosystem, think about our own individual role, as well as thinking about a role in a particular organisation as well. But I know it's been a great discussion this morning, and thank you very much to all four of you, Will, Barry, Roy and Grace. Hopefully everybody in the audience has came away with something of use, and we're really hoping it's something that you can kind of take away and action, maybe in your organisation or think personally around your use of AI. This is part of a series, a business breakfast series. So what we're really trying to do is ensure that we provide breakfast sessions that are insightful for you, as business leaders, and that you hear from some of the research that we do. So we'd really appreciate you just taking a couple of minutes and giving us feedback on today's session and also what you would like to see in the future. If you want to stay in touch with us as well on our socials, we've got Alumni LinkedIn, so you hear about wider Queen's maybe events and workshops happening, and then QBS, we post a lot around different business breakfasts and different insight sessions and research that we have in focus. So please feel free to follow us. So thank you very much to all of you for attending this morning, and hopefully we'll see you at another event soon. Thank you.